Okay, as we get into this a little bit further, right, we're going to talk about like which fuels do we burn. Like we already know that we need oxygen present to use fat. We also know that it's going to be a longer, slower duration of exercise when we're using fat. Carbohydrates can be used in both. So how do we kind of value which one we're going to use? Well, like the most important thing is the intensity of exercise, right? If you have high intensity, you're not going to be able to sustain it for a long period of time, which means we're not going to be able to get into like an oxidative state, right? Like we might be out of breath or whatnot, but that's the cardiovascular fitness portion of it. We're not really using it for a long extended period of time, right? So like the intensity of exercise or that time element or the duration element that's worked into that, those things kind of go hand in hand, right? Intensity goes up, duration goes down. Intensity goes down, duration can go up. Really, when you're talking about that, there's like long, slow duration or LSD exercise, right? That's that like long jog, right? But there's a couple other factors that go into like which one will be used, or a couple other ways to look at it as well, right? And so when we're looking at intensity and fuels, this graph pretty much tells us where we're at. Right? Like you have to understand the body's always trying to work as efficiently as possible, and it's never just one system or the other. It's kind of all systems working together when we're talking about those energy systems, right? ATP, PC, aerobic glycolytic and anaerobic glycolytic, right? And so you can kind of see here when we are on the high intensity side, it's pretty much all carbohydrates, right? When we're on the low intensity side, it's almost all fatty acids, right? Almost all fats, right? Protein, I just kind of eliminate just because, yes, it's used, but it's not really an energy source for us, right? And then like I think kind of that sweet spot where we're in like moderate exercise, where we're using carbs, but we're also using enough fatty acids and that we can extend the longer duration of time. And if you do the math, and there's a lot of ways you can calculate this out, depending on exercise intensity level and all that, right? That like sweet spots when you're working in like the moderate exercise where it's like 50% carbs, 50% fat, and you're able to like really like burn a lot of calories. And even though it might not be all fat calories, you're burning more fat calories than if you were just go long, slow duration, right? Like long walk versus a moderate jog. So something to look at there. The other thing that you need to take into account is how fit you are, right? So here we have the VO2 max of two people, an untrained and a trained person. So VO2 max is really just how efficient your body takes in oxygen, delivers it to the muscles, right? And how well they can, and with that oxygen, like within the blood, right? So like blood cells are going, and how like how much oxygen is used, and how many, and what the percentage of fat that's being used, right? To fuel the body. So like that dotted line or that horizontal line that says fast walk, like we're kind of looking there, and it's like, we'll say 27, right? In terms of like VO2, right? And when you're looking at this, you have an untrained person, right? And you're kind of at the peak of their VO2 max, right? So the intensity of that person is going to be extremely high, which means that they're not really in a fat burning state. They're in an oxidative state. They're not going to be able to sustain exercise very long, or at least that exercise they can't do very long. So they're actually going to be burning more carbs. Where the trained person, it's below their halfway point, right? Like they're in probably not even moderate exercise, to be honest with you, at that level. And they're going to be more in like a long LSD type setting with this fast walk, right? So they're going to be burning more fat calories. So if you want to find out a way to burn more fat, get more fit, right? You got to do less work to burn more fat. Your body just burns it like crazy because most of the exercise you do isn't really high intensity exercise. So all those factors come into which fuels you're burning, right? Like how to calculate which ones you're burning, and then depending on your fitness, right? Like it's all relative to who you are. So there's no like one simple answer.